Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku and Ochako Becomes Villain? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Chapter 1. I woke up and yawned, stretching my arms as I thought, another day at school. I quickly got out of bed and put on my school uniform, a gray outfit with blue stripes on the shoulders and a red tie. After a quick glance in the mirror, satisfied with my appearance, I opened the door of my room, which was adorned with All Might posters, and stepped out. In the kitchen, my mother was busy preparing breakfast. I grabbed a piece of toast from the counter. "Hello, Izuku. Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Yes, thank you, Mom," I replied, munching on my toast. I glanced at the clock and realized it was time to go. "Bye, Mom. See you tonight." "Bye, Izuku. Be careful at school today." "I will," I called back as I dashed out the door and headed to school. A few minutes later, I heard a familiar voice calling from behind. "Midoriya." "Wait for me," the girl shouted. I stopped and waited for the brown-haired girl to catch up. She arrived, slightly out of breath. "Good morning, Midoriya," she said cheerfully. "Hey, Uraraka. How are you?" "I'm good, thanks for asking." I smiled widely at her, and she returned the gesture. After chatting for a few more minutes, we arrived at school and made our way to Class 1A, where most of our classmates were already waiting for class to begin. "Midoriya and Uraraka, good morning." Ida greeted us as we entered. Everyone else chimed in with greetings, and I responded with a smile. It felt nice to be surrounded by such kind classmates, especially compared to my last school. However, one person remained silent. "Here comes the nerd," Bakugo sneered. I chose to ignore him, continuing my conversation with Uraraka and Ida until the bell rang. Everyone took their assigned seats, waiting for the teacher. As expected, Aizawa was late. When he finally arrived, he had his signature yellow sleeping bag under his arm, and class began. Time skipped to 12:50. It was time for basic hero training. This time, All Might, myself, and one other will supervise the training. "You will be doing rescue training at the USJ," Aizawa announced. Surprised murmurs filled the room. "I'm not done," he continued, casting a stern look at us. The chatter ceased immediately. "You can choose whether or not to wear your hero uniform for this training. I want everyone in front of the school ready to go in 15 minutes, he instructed, slipping into his sleeping bag. 15 minutes later. "Midoriya? Where's your costume?" Uraraka asked. "Let's just say it didn't survive the last battle training," I admitted. "Oh no, haha. Well, the gym uniform suits you," she replied, giggling. Our conversation was cut short when Ida shouted for everyone to get in line. We boarded the bus and headed to the USJ. Upon arrival, excited gasps filled the air. A large man in astronaut-like armor, the Hero 13, greeted us. Uraraka and I couldn't contain our excitement and let out joyful screams. Our classmates looked at us and laughed, but they were starting to get used to our enthusiastic reactions. "Welcome to the USJ. Today you will do rescue training?" 13 explained, outlining the rules and specifications. "Great, first off," Aizawa began, but was interrupted by a swirling sound echoing through the unforeseen simulation joint. Everyone turned to the source of the noise as a large purple mass began to form in front of us. Figures started to emerge from it. "Is it already beginning?" someone whispered. "No, it is not. These are real villains," Aizawa shouted, activating his quirk. He leaped off the stairs to confront the villains as they fully emerged from the portal, the purple mist taking on a more human-like shape. "Greetings," the figure said in a chilling voice. "We are the League of Villains. We are here to kill the #1 hero." I felt a wave of shock and fear wash over me. Uraraka gripped my arm tightly, trembling beside me. "All Might." At that moment, Bakugo and Kirishima leaped into action, launching their attacks at the purple figure. "I will end you," Bakugo shouted. But before we could react further, we were enveloped in the swirling purple and black mist. Chapter end. I appeared a second later in a dark place. "Hello," I said with a nervous voice. Midoriya. I heard Uraraka's voice. Uraraka. Thank goodness you are here. Yeah. But where are we? Where are all the others? I'm guessing we got separated, I replied. That's right, said a croaky voice behind us. We jumped backward, and Uraraka started to hold onto my arm again. I positioned myself in front of her to protect her. What do why you ant, villain? I asked. I don't want to hurt you too. I just want to talk to you. We know you aren't up to any good, I said, forcing myself to look brave. I can say you are partially right about that, said the man with blue hair. He let out a quick and unsettling laugh that sent chills down my spine. Normally, I would have wanted only the green-haired boy here, but I guess the girl is fine too. What do you mean? Uraraka asked, a hint of anger in her voice. The man with the hands all over his head laughed again. I want you to join me. What? I screamed. I want you to join us. To join the League of Villains. I answered without hesitation, no way. I would never do that. Yeah. Why did you even think we would accept? Uraraka added. He let out yet another eerie laugh. I expected this. But I didn't really give you a choice, he said. He then lunged at us. I blocked his attack with my arm as he continued to try and kick us. Suddenly, he pulled something out of his pocket, 2 syringes. It would have been so much easier if you accepted when I asked, he said before stabbing the needle into both our arms. I let out a sigh of pain, grabbing the spot where he had stabbed me. What the hell did you do? Uraraka asked, wincing at the pain. Just a little something that will help all of us, he said before disappearing into the black and purple mist. His villainous laugh echoed in the dark space we were in. He escaped. What did he do to us? Uraraka asked. I was panicked at the thought of it. I don't know. Let's just find a way out of this place first. We started searching for a door on the walls. After a little bit of searching, I finally found one and opened it. We emerged on top of a huge mountain outside of the USJ, able to see it from a distance. Come on, let's make our way back, I said. We've got to help the others. We began our trek back to the USJ. After a few minutes of running, I started to feel a little sick, but I brushed it off, attributing it to the nervousness. After another couple of minutes, we finally made it inside. As I started to head toward the stairs, I saw a large mass of black fly out of the dome into the sky. On the floor, All Might was in a fighting stance. The man with the blue hair and the purple mist began to threaten All Might, accusing him of killing a certain gnome. I knew All Might was in trouble. The mist around him confirmed it. As they started to attack him, I recalled what they had asked me earlier. Come join us, the League of Villains. The thought made me so angry that, without hesitation, I jumped toward All Might and intercepted the attack the blue-haired man was about to deliver. I had to do something. Midoriya, screamed Kirishima. I broke my legs in the process, but I didn't care. What mattered was that I needed to save All Might. Then the pro-heroes arrived with Ida. Unfortunately, the villains escaped. When we returned to UA, everyone was sent home immediately. I passed by recovery girls' office, got my legs healed, and started making my way home. As in the morning, Uraraka joined me. Hey Midoriya, she said softly. Are you okay? I asked. I'm feeling very sick. I don't know why. I felt unwell too. My face must have looked pale. You should get some rest after what happened today, I suggested. Yeah, I still can't get over what those villains asked us. It was foolish of them to do that. They knew very well what our answer would be. She nodded in agreement. After a few minutes of walking, we went our separate ways. As I made my way home, I sensed something was wrong. I was getting sicker by the second. As I passed a few houses, I had to lean against a wall to regain my balance, which never came. Everything was blurry and I felt nauseous. I could feel my heart beating faster in my chest. Sweat began to drip down my face as I felt weaker and weaker. After a few more minutes of pain and uneasiness, I felt a sudden blow to my head. And then nothing. Chapter end. I woke up to a bright light shining down on me. It took me a couple of seconds to fully open my eyes. I was strapped to a table, unable to move. Panic set in as I struggled against the restraints. Carolina. Smash. I shouted, hoping for a miracle, but nothing happened. Desperately, I scanned the room for a way to escape. That's when I noticed Uraraka beside me, unconscious. Uraraka, wake up please? I cried out, my voice filled with urgency. I continued to struggle, but the straps held firm. After what felt like an eternity, I saw her stir. Midoriya? Where are we? Why are we strapped to a table? What's happening? She asked, her eyes wide with confusion. I don't know. But I'm trying to find a way out. I replied, both of us continuing to fight against our restraints. Suddenly, the door at the far end of the room swung open, and chills ran down my spine as I saw who entered. Well, it seems we caught our two fish, said a man with blue hair and hands covering his face. Let us go right now, I shouted, fear creeping into my voice. Ah, did you really think it would be this easy? He taunted. I asked you two to join our organization, but you refused. So this is your consequence. Behind him, another figure emerged, shrouded in purple mist. Kurojiri, get me the potion, the blue-haired man commanded. The misty figure handed him a vial filled with a red liquid. You see this? He said, holding it up. My quirk is decay. I can destroy anything I touch. His calm demeanor only heightened my fear. Recently, I've found a way to extend my attacks, he continued. You might be wondering why I'm telling you this. He walked over to a wall, and I watched in horror as he touched it and drank the potion. The wall began to crumble at an alarming rate, and he stopped just before it could collapse completely. This is what will happen to your school and homes if you don't join us, he warned. Froze shocked. That would be unfortunate if it happened right in the middle of class, where all your friends are, or when your parents are cooking a meal for you. And if it doesn't work, he revealed a remote control. I will just blow up the rest, he said with a smile that sent shivers down my spine. I don't believe this. Uraraka shouted. Oh, is that so? Would you like a preview? He asked, poised to press the button. Stop. Uraraka cried out. I thought about everything, my life at UA, my mom, my friends, and Uraraka, who shouldn't even be here. Tears welled up in my eyes. If I didn't accept, everything I loved could be lost. Sorry, All Might, I thought. Fine. I'll join. I yelled. Uraraka looked at me, sadness in her eyes. Same for me, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Anger surged within me at the villains for putting her through this. Perfect. Welcome to the League of Villains, Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka. After he untied us, he showed us around the hideout and assigned us rooms for the night. Despite my anger toward him, I knew I had to do this for my friends and those who mattered to me. First of all, you tell anyone about this and you die, he warned, his tone chilling. Second, your job will be to gather information on heroes. You will continue attending your school to take notes and report back to us. And third, you will come here every night after school, no questions asked. Is this clear? I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation. Awesome. Now get home. It's late, he said in a low voice. We hurried to the door and opened it. Don't forget what I told you, he called after us. Chapter end. I closed the door, and we both started to run. I can't believe this, Uraraka said, tears forming in her eyes. We've become what we hate. There is no turning back now. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me at seeing the normally cheerful Uraraka in such distress. I approached her and hugged her tightly, resting my head on hers. She hugged me back. Don't worry, we will get out of this situation, even if it takes days, weeks, months, or even years. I will never give up, I said, trying to encourage her. You're right, she replied, her tears subsiding a little. I will never give up either. I backed away and flashed a smile, and she smiled back, though still a bit sad. Well, my mom will be worried if I don't get back soon, I said. Good night, Uraraka. Bye, Midoriya. Oh, and you can call me Ochako, you know. Oh, of course. You can call me Izuku too then. She laughed nervously. All right. Goodbye, she said, running in the direction of her home. I smiled, but as soon as I was alone, the heavy reality came crashing back. Time skipped to tomorrow. I woke up feeling really tired. It was 1 a.m. when I got back and I couldn't sleep. My mom asked me a million questions, but I made sure to answer in a way that made sense. I hated lying to her, but it felt necessary. I dragged myself to school. When I arrived, I saw Ochako entering the school as well. "Hey, Ochako," I called out. She turned, surprised. "Oh, hey, Izuku. How are you feeling?" I asked. "Tired. I didn't get any sleep," she replied. "Same here," I said with a yawn. "And we still need to go there after school?" "Ugh, don't remind me," she said as we entered the classroom. Everyone was already seated. "Midoriya, Uraraka, you both are late," Ida called out. "I'm so sorry," I said. "Me too," Ochako added. "It's fine, just go to your seats before Mr. Aizawa comes," Ida said. I took my seat and prepared for class to begin. "Hey, Midoriya," I heard Siro call from beside me. "Are you okay? You look tired." "Oh yeah, I am. I just didn't get a lot of sleep last night," I said, smiling nervously. "Oh, it's okay. Try to get some more tonight," he advised with a smile. "Thanks for the advice, Siro," I replied, managing a small smile. I sighed and looked out the window, my mind racing with thoughts of what had happened yesterday. I'm basically betraying everyone. Fantastic, I thought. After a few minutes, Aizawa arrived, and class started. Time skipped to after school. I waited for Ochako in front of the school, waving at classmates as they headed home. When she finally arrived, we began walking toward the bar in silence, both of us unsure of what lay ahead. As we got closer, my nerves intensified. When we reached the door, the man was already waiting for us. "You took your sweet time," he said in a low voice. "We came back after school, just like you wanted." I stammered. "Whatever. I have a job for you both," he said, waving us inside. The man behind the counter, shrouded in purple mist, introduced himself. "I am Shigaraki, and this is Kurojiri. Now for the job." He let out a quick laugh, which made me frown. "You need to eliminate these 3 people, he said, showing us pictures. My heart raced. "K-kill?" I stuttered. "It means you have to assassinate them." "Are you really that clueless?" he shouted, standing over us. "And if you don't complete the task, you don't want to know the consequences?" I shivered at his words. He provided us with information about the targets, and I felt sick, realizing we had no choice. Anger bubbled within me. "Now go, and don't come back until you're both done, is that clear?" he said menacingly. "Why yes," Ochako muttered. "Oh, and wear this if you don't want to be recognized." He tossed us similar costumes. I put mine on, a barman outfit with a black mask covering my face except for my eyes, and black gloves. I looked like a villain. Ochako had a similar outfit. "You will need this," he said, handing us knives. He laughed at our panicked expressions. "Now go. And don't you dare mess this up," he screamed. We both ran out of the bar as if our lives depended on it. As soon as we were outside, I threw the knife onto the ground. "I don't want to do this, Izuku," Ochako said, her voice trembling and tears in her eyes. "Me neither. We are supposed to be heroes, not villains," I replied, feeling tears welling up in my own eyes. Chapter end. Let's just do it," she suddenly said. I was surprised by her words. But she was right. We had to take action. I hated to admit it, but the lives of our friends were more important. "Let's get this over with," I replied. Chapter end. We both arrived at the place Shigaraki told us to go to. I started to look around for the 3 people he told us to confront. "They are here," my companion said, pointing. I looked in the direction she indicated and saw them. Suddenly, my knees began to shake. We both started to make our way toward them, following the plan we had made. I struggled to breathe. I arrived behind one person and I acted. I heard a choked gasp, and the man fell face-first to the ground. I dropped my weapon, shocked at what I had just done. No. I felt nauseous. My vision blurred and my head spun. I ran to the place Ochako and I agreed to meet after we were done and leaned against a wall, overwhelmed. A few moments later, I heard Ochako's footsteps approaching. "Oh my God." "No," she began to cry. I rushed to her and hugged her tightly. Soon, I found myself crying as well. "It's gonna be okay," I tried to reassure her. "This is torture," she said, her voice trembling. I didn't respond. Instead, I stood up and reached out my hand to her. She took it, and we began the long walk back to the bar. It took us about 30 minutes. I knocked on the door, but then a flash of realization hit me. The third person. There were only 2 people. Where was the third one? Panic set in, but it was too late. The door was already opening. Midoriya and Uraraka? I nodded, unable to speak after what had happened. Both Ochako and I were in rough shape. I entered, still holding Ochako, who walked with difficulty. But as soon as I stepped inside, something hit me on the head, and I fell to the floor. What did I say about completing the job? B but W did. I whimpered, wincing from the pain. You only killed 2 of them. He grabbed my hair and lifted me off the ground. I struggled to free myself as he kicked me in the stomach. After a few moments, he let go, and I fell to the floor, clutching my abdomen. Pathetic. And I thought that All Might's successor would be better than that. I was stunned. How did he know? He wasn't supposed to know that. Ochako screamed at Shigaraki to stop, held back by another villain who ensured she couldn't use her quirk. I regained my courage and tried to fight back. Detroit. Smash. I shouted, delivering a powerful blow that sent him crashing into the wall. I let out a sigh of pain and relief, but I had forgotten about Kurogiri. A black and purple mist enveloped us, and we were teleported to another room, the same room we had woken up in the day before. Kurogiri, Mani, he said to the 2 villains with him, tie them up. Kurogiri grabbed both my arms and secured me to the table, doing the same to Uraraka. What happened next was unbearable. Punches, kicks, it was relentless. Time skip, 2 weeks later. Pain was all I could feel. For the past 2 weeks, it had been the same routine: school, hero training, villain hideouts, more training or missions, and sleep at 1 a.m. Each time we failed a mission, we faced severe consequences. I felt responsible, wanting to spare Ochako from the worst of it. Shigaraki was careful, ensuring not to leave marks on our faces or arms so that UA wouldn't suspect anything. I tried my best to focus in class and forget the fate that awaited me at night, but it was impossible. Dark circles under both mine and Ochako's eyes, combined with our somber moods, worried our classmates. They would ask questions, but I always gave the same answer: we were training together every night. They believed it at first, but after 2 weeks of the same excuse, I could tell they were starting to doubt us. But I would never reveal the truth. I arrived in class and made my way to my desk without greeting anyone. Ochako was already sitting at her desk, her head resting on the table. I sat down and stared out the window, lost in my thoughts. Tears began to form in my eyes. It hurt to act this way. I'm a traitor. Smiling felt impossible now, pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. I quickly wiped my tears with my arm, forcing myself not to cry. I sensed some gazes on me and heard someone approaching. Midoriya. We know something's wrong with you. I turned to see Todoroki, Ida, Kaminari, Kirishima, and the other boys standing around my desk. Even Kaken was there. Behind them, I could see the girls were doing the same with Ochako. Yeah, talk to us, man. We're classmates and classmates stick together. Kirishima encouraged. Oh, it's nothing, I swear, I told them, panic rising within me. It's not nothing, you freaking idiot. Kaken shouted, slamming his hand on my desk. Chapter end. Kaminari looked at me with a serious expression. You need to stop with the lies, he said. Kirishima added sadly, what happened to your smile and joyful attitude, bro? Their words felt like daggers, piercing through me. I can't tell you. I screamed in my mind. I stammered, but before I could finish, Kaminari interrupted. You better not be trying to tell us another lie, Deku. I'll be really upset if you do. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. Overwhelmed, I stood up abruptly and ran out of the classroom. Seeing chapter end. I stopped beside the school's gate, just as I had 2 weeks ago before the USJ incident. When she arrived, she jumped into my arms. I was surprised at first and felt a blush creep onto my cheeks, but when I realized she was crying, I hugged her back tightly. I can't do this anymore. Seeing them so worried about me is even more painful than what we have to suffer at that horrible place, she said. I know, I replied softly. And what do? We kill people behind their backs like the villains we are, she exclaimed, her voice breaking as she cried even more. I let go of her and flashed a small smile, hoping to cheer her up. But then I felt a sharp blow to my head. I woke up in my room, but it was the villain's hideout. Everything that had happened came rushing back to me. I stood up and made my way to the door, opening it, and running out. After a few minutes, I found myself in front of the bar where the two villains were seated. Good afternoon, said Shigaraki. What did you do? I asked, my heart racing. Oh, I did nothing. I just did the correct thing. Your classmates were getting suspicious after all. I did you a favor. What do you mean? You are not going back to school anymore, and neither is Ochako. What? No. Yes. You're too much of a crybaby. Soon enough, you would have told them everything. Please, I'll do anything you want. Did you just refuse my order? Panic surged through me. I knew I was in trouble. Kurogyari, get the girl? He warped Ochako here, and she fell to the floor, waking up groggily. What's happening? She asked, half asleep. You are not going back to school anymore. What? Why? He explained the situation to her, and I could see the fear in her eyes. Now that this is done, it's time for you two to turn into real villains. Kurogyari warped us into the same room as before. But this time, we knew something worse was coming. What's happening? What do you mean? Ochako asked, her voice trembling. You'll see. Bye-bye, Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka. He injected a syringe into both of our arms. I began to feel tired, my vision blurred, and then everything went black. Time skip, 2 days later. I opened my eyes, once again in my room upstairs. What happened? I thought, my head pounding. As soon as I stood up, I heard voices in the hallway. Shigaraki and Kurogyari were talking. They should have lost their memories after this. Are you sure? Kurogyari asked. Yes, they were weaker than we expected. And when should they wake up? Well, it's been 2 days, but I would say tomorrow. We will begin their real training as villains after that. Nice. They will become strong villains, Kurogyari replied. Of course, that broccoli has All Might's quirk after all. They continued talking until I couldn't hear them anymore. If the drag they used against us causes memory loss, why do I still remember? Must have not worked, I thought. I sighed and quietly opened the door. I tiptoed to Ochako's room and opened it. She was still sound asleep. Ochako, I whispered, shaking her gently. She opened her eyes, and when she saw me, her face turned a little red. Izuku? What are you doing here? We're still at the villain's hideout. Oh, but something happened. I proceeded to tell her what I had overheard. So, they think we lost our memories? She asked, her eyes wide. Yeah, and they were probably planning to fill us with lies and hatred so that we become real villains. I'm so glad I still remember everything, she said. Me too, I replied, smiling at her. She smiled back, and then her face lit up. I have an idea. What is it? Let's act like we lost our memories. What? Why don't we just run away? They will know that we didn't lose our memories, and then they will. She paused. I know, I said, considering her idea. That could be a good plan. We should act like we don't remember anything. Then they will fill us with lies, and after that, we can act like real villains. Yeah. Maybe this way, we won't be monitored 24/7, we won't have to hurt anyone for real, and one day we can get out of this mess. Yes, I said, feeling a sense of hope. She smiled brightly, and it was one of the only genuine smiles I had shared in the last 2 weeks. I'll go back to my room. See you later. She waved at me, and I quietly returned to my room. After a few hours of planning, I heard footsteps coming upstairs. I quickly got into bed and pretended to sleep. The door opened. Time to wake up. The blue-haired guy approached me, and then a sharp pain shot through my body. I screamed and sat up immediately. He had sliced one of my legs open with a knife. Oh, who are you? Great, it's working. What chapter end? Chapter 6. What? Really? I asked, still trying to process what he was saying. Yes, he replied. You can't remember anything because you hit your head really hard. Oh, that's why I have a headache, I said, rubbing my temples. Yeah, now follow me. I will show you something that might help you regain your memories, he said, leading me out of my room. We went downstairs, and there I saw Ochako with another person. Who are these people? I asked. This is Kurojiri, he said, gesturing to the man beside him. And this is Okacho. Nice to meet you, I said, trying to keep the mood light. Anyway, let me tell you both something, he continued. We all sat down, and the blue-haired guy removed his hand from his face. I had never seen his face before, and it gave me an uneasy feeling. You see this, he said, pointing to the scars on his forehead. This is a result of a group of people who caused this? Really? I asked, my curiosity piqued. Yeah, and not only did they attack me, but they attacked you both too. He coughed slightly, gathering his thoughts. A few weeks ago, we were all walking together, just the four of us, when this group came out of nowhere and started attacking us. They left us there. What? Ochako exclaimed, her voice filled with anger. Yeah, and the worst part is, they were all your friends before. You all went to the same school and were in the same class. But one day, they betrayed you by attacking you. I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. I started, feigning anger. I can help you get revenge, Shigaraki said, his eyes glinting. Chapter end. Part 1. 16 huge time skip, for months later. What did I say about taking too much time? Shigaraki said, anger lacing his voice. Again and again he punched and kicked me. I couldn't fight back. I'm sorry, I said with a smile. I'll try to do better next time. You should be sorry, you piece of garbage. He shouted, cutting my back with a knife. This was his kind of torture, the one with a knife. But after 4 months of it, I couldn't even feel the pain anymore. Go up to your room and bandage these wounds. Yes, Mr. Shigaraki. Thanks for your time, I said with a forced smile. I made my way to the stairs but did not enter my room. Instead, I went to Ochako's. As soon as she saw me, she sighed. Again? She asked softly, moving toward a drawer. Yeah. She took some bandages and approached me. You should let me take the blame sometimes, Izuku, she said seriously. After all, it's not always your fault. I don't want to see you hurt, I replied, smiling at her. She blushed and smiled back. But all these scars. I don't care. I already had some from One for All, so I guess they'll blend in. But no buts. I'm just glad you're not hurt. Don't worry about me. Of course I worry about you. You're the one who keeps coming in here hurt all the time. You're starting to sound like Kaken, I said. She sighed. I wonder how they all are right now. Let me give you an update. After all these months of living as villains, we learned how to reinforce ourselves. At first, we missed our families and friends, but over time, we became less sad, knowing that we were protecting them by doing this. Our missions were mostly about taking down groups of people. But after a month, they stopped monitoring us with a tiny camera. That was when we finally gained their trust. I refused to harm anyone from that moment on, and so did Ochako. The beatings never stopped, though. Shigaraki was always mad about something and often took it out on me. Here, it's done, but we're running out of bandages again, she said. Thanks, I'll go tell. Shigaraki. Be careful. Ochako and I had become really close. We were the only sane ones here, and she was the only person I could truly trust. She also knew about my quirk's origin and how All Might had passed on his quirk to me. I stood up and walked to the mirror. The scars running along my arms, legs, and torso disgusted me. I shuffled through one of Ochako's drawers and found a shirt that belonged to me. My appearance had changed. After so many sleepless nights of training and missions, dark circles had formed under my eyes. My face looked unhealthy, and my hair had grown longer. I had a small scar above my right brow from a battle. What are you looking at? She asked. How disgusting I look, I replied with a hint of sarcasm. Ugh, have you looked at me? I look like I haven't slept in weeks. I let out a little laugh, and so did she. It was true that she kind of had the same situation going on, except for the scar. I put on a black hoodie and a mask that only showed my eyes. I also put in red contacts. I'll go ask him, I said. I'm coming with you, I need fresh air. Fine, come down whenever you want. I exited the door and made my way down to the bar. There sat Shigaraki, Kurojiri, Dabi, and Himiko, along with a couple of villains talking in a corner. Ikuzu, what do you want? Kurojiri asked. We're running out of bandages, I said to Shigaraki. If you could let me go get some, I would appreciate it. Whatever. Is Ochako coming with you? Yeah. Oh, I want to go with Ikukuin, said Himiko. You stay there, Toga, Shigaraki said. I have to tell you and Dabi something. Unfair. She pouted. Dabi rolled his eyes and continued drinking whatever he had. I heard footsteps behind me. It was Ochako. Now go, and if you see any UA students, you know what to do. Of course, Simsaha, said Ochako in a sweet voice. They won't be seeing the daylight anymore, I said in a deep voice, cringing inside. Great, he said, handing us $100 bill. Oh, and get us some more little knives too. Toga broke 10 of them yesterday. Oops, said the girl. Of course, I answered. We made our way outside and closed the door behind us. We walked to the mall in silence, not wanting to draw attention to ourselves. After a few minutes, Ochako broke the silence. What happens if we see UA students? We don't harm them, of course. And it would be strange to see some. I've never seen any during all the times we've come here. Have you, Chapterin? Not me either, she said, shaking her head softly. We continued to walk in silence. I glanced at her a few times. It was clear something was on her mind. What are you thinking about? Oh, nothing. Oh, okay, sorry, I said. After a few more minutes, we arrived at the mall. It was pretty empty, considering it was 8 p.m., just an hour before closing. First, we went to the weapon shop to get some small knives. The guy at the counter looked at us oddly, but we brushed it off. Next, we visited the convenience store and picked up a few rolls of bandages. Hey, there's some money left. Do you want something? I asked her. I don't need anything, she replied. How about a shirt? She froze, her eyes lighting up. They shirt? Wasn't it you who complained about the lack of style the villains had? I said with a smile. I laughed at the embarrassed expression she made. Alright, let's go into this store. We entered a nearby shop that was quite empty and wandered through the aisles. There were many hero shirts and costume imitations on display. After a few minutes, she finally found a pink shirt adorned with cute flowers and instantly fell in love with it. We bought it, and with still 20 minutes left of our freedom, we sat on the edge of the fountain in the middle of the main hall, taking a moment to relax. That's when we chapter end. Chapter 8. Hey, summer camp's tomorrow, said Kaminari, excitement evident in his voice. I can't wait. It'll be so cool with all of us together, shouted Mina, her enthusiasm infectious. Yeah, but we still need to practice, chimed in Todoroki, his tone more serious. Exactly. It'll be the perfect occasion to hone our skills without any distractions. Kirishima added, his energy unwavering. Shut up, you redhead, you're making too much noise, a familiar voice cut through the chatter. Talk about noisy. You're the noisiest here. Kirishima shot back. Do you want to get in trouble? I glanced at Ochako, panic rising in my chest. She mirrored my concern. Oh my God, she whispered, it's them. Yeah. Let's just walk away, I suggested quietly. But, she began, but her words faded as she listened intently to the conversation around us. It would have been fun if all of us were here, Yayarosa said, her voice tinged with sadness. Silence hung in the air. I agree. I miss them so much. Kirishima added, his tone heavy. We've got to stay positive. That's what they would have wanted. Mina insisted, trying to lift the mood. After 4 months, really? Jairu replied, her skepticism palpable. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes. For the first time in months, I felt the weight of my emotions. We need to let them know we're alive, please, Izuku, Ochako said, her voice trembling. How? I asked. Let's write a note. She pulled out her shirt and removed the label, asking someone for a pencil. She wrote on the white side of the label and handed the pencil back. We are alive, she wrote. Come on, she urged, standing up. She took my hand and started running around the fountain where the class was gathered. She dropped the label in front of them and dashed toward the doors, not letting go of my hand. We burst out of the mall and ran as fast as we could, not stopping until we reached the hideout. Ochako tucked the shirt she had bought into her jacket. As we entered, we tried to appear as normal as possible, removing our masks. Finally, that took ages, Shigaraki complained. "Here are the knives," I said, tossing a bag filled with them onto the table. "Perfect. Come here now." I sat at the bar, and Ochako joined me. Kurojiri poured us both water. "In a few days, you'll meet the real he said, and I feigned surprise. "Also, in 3 days the Vanguard will attack UA's summer camp position. You will both accompany them." He then outlined his plan. Dabi was the group's leader, and Shigaraki wouldn't be joining us. "The MSTR will inform you of your roles after this little trip. In the meantime, you should train to impress him." "Yes, sir," Ochako replied. "You start training at 4 tomorrow morning." I nodded, and we headed up to our rooms. For once, he allowed us to sleep earlier. As soon as I entered my room, I jumped onto my bed and fell asleep instantly. Time skip, 3 days later. It was finally time to attack the summer camp. The Vanguard group was already in place, but Shigaraki wanted us to arrive a bit later. "The only thing you both need to do is find the student named Katsuki Bakugo." I froze. "Kaken? Who's that?" I asked. "He's a boy that will be very important to us. Gather information and bring him to us." "Understood. Leave it to us," I said with a determined smile. "Now go. Use your quirks to get there." In the days leading up to this, Ochako and I had perfected our quirk combos, attacks that utilized both of our abilities. "You will also be monitored this time," he added. "I want to see the students' faces when they see what you both have become." My heart sank. All our plans had just been jeopardized. "We will not fail you, sir," Ochako declared with a fierce smile. "You better not mess this up. You know what will happen if you do." "We won't," I assured him, and we dashed out of the hideout. I activated full cowl and began leaping across the buildings at high speed. Ochako wrapped her arms around my neck, using her quirk, Zero Gravity, to lighten her weight and allow me to move more freely. After what felt like an eternity of jumping, I finally landed on the mountain. To remain discreet, we ran up the slope to where Dabi was waiting. "Finally, you guys are here. It's time to begin," he said. "What are your orders?" I asked. "The students from Class 1A and 1B are currently doing a courage test in the woods. Just attack whatever group of students you see." There were 12 of us villains. They underestimate our class, I thought, frustration bubbling within me. "This'll be easy," Ochako said confidently. "Yeah, now. Go." As we made our way through the forest in our villain costumes, I recalled how Shigaraki had designed them to resemble our chapter end. It's a creation made by the MSTR, apparently. Our hero costumes were similar, except for the colors. The green had turned to black, and Ochako's pink had changed as well. On the back of our costumes, 3 bold words were emblazoned: League of Villains. "I can't wait," said Ochako, her excitement palpable. I was surprised to hear her adopt a villain tone with me, but then I remembered that Shigaraki was watching and listening to us. "Yeah, I bet we're stronger than all of them now," I replied confidently. "Pathetic weaklings," she shot back, a smirk on her face. After a few more minutes of walking, we began to notice a chapter end. We both saw, through the thick mist, Yaoyorozu, Kaken, Kirishima, Todoroki, and Tsu, all together. We ran behind a tree, observing them. A wave of nervousness washed over me. I looked at Ochako with panicked eyes, and she mirrored my expression. "I see some students over there," she said, regaining her confidence. "Let's go confront them." "I'm sorry," I thought before stepping out from behind the tree. "Hey, there's people coming here," shouted Kirishima. The mist obscured their view of us. "I can't see anything," complained Yaoyorozu. "Hey, are you guys students? What's happening? Why is there a poisonous mist here?" My heart sank, and tears threatened to spill from my eyes. "Wait, those shadows," said Tsu. Finally, we emerged from the mist. Midoriya? You are Uraraka? You've got to be kidding me," Kaken exclaimed, rushing toward us. "Where have you been? Wait, something's wrong." How do they have their costumes and why do they look like that? I gathered my courage and, swallowing my emotions, began to speak. I'm glad you asked, dear friends, I said. What? What's wrong with Deku's voice? Kaken questioned. We're no longer your innocent friends, I declared. As if connected by a shared thought, we both laughed simultaneously. No more innocent Deku and sweet Uraraka, Ochako added with an unsettling cheerfulness. The look on their faces shattered my heart. Anger, sadness, guilt, everything swirled within me. Now, it's time for you to face us, I said, adjusting my black gloves. And the battle began. I faced Todoroki, Kaken, and Kirishima, while Ochako took on the two girls. We fought fiercely, not holding back. What happened to you, you freaking Kaken yelled. Life happened, Katsuki Bakugo, I replied with a smile. Flashes of explosions, patches of ice, and walls of fire filled the air. Don't you remember the good times we had together? Kirishima asked, blocking my attack. What good times? You were always against me. I overpowered him, sending him crashing into a tree. I immediately regretted it. Kirishima? Kaken shouted, turning to check on him. I'll take you down, Deku. I'd like to see you try, I retorted. His explosions were close, but my costume protected me. Todoroki's ice struck me multiple times, but I managed to escape each time. They were stronger than before and it showed. Todoroki, Bakugo. Let's team up. I glanced at Ochako and saw she had defeated Tsuyu. Yaoyorozu joined the boys, and Ochako came to my side. You made the wrong choice, she said in a chilling tone. Ochako grabbed my hand, and with full cowl, we jumped high into the air. She made us lighter, and when we reached the peak, she released us. I shouted, "Earth smash," as I hit the ground with both fists. The ground shook, and a powerful wave of wind hit them. They initially countered, but soon they were blown away. Bakugo fell unconscious, while Yaoyorozu and Todoroki struggled to stand. Our goal was to avoid leaving scars, and we succeeded. One of the villains from the vanguard swooped down. Good job, kiddos. I'll be taking this one back to the base, he said, picking up Bakugo and flying away. We stood before our friends, two unconscious and two struggling to rise. I heard a quiet sob beside me. Tears streamed down Ochako's cheeks through her mask. Come on, let's go back, I said, my voice harsher than intended. I didn't realize my voice trembled. Tears formed in my eyes, and I quickly wiped them away. You're bleeding, she pointed out. She was right. Todoroki's ice had cut my side, Kirishima's quirk left marks, and Bakugo's explosions had damaged my costume. Let's fix this at home. A few hours later, we were back at the hideout. Everyone from the vanguard was there except for 3 who had been caught. Ochako and I arrived earlier because the Jesser wanted to speak with us. Shigaraki led us to him and left us in a dim room illuminated only by a computer screen. Welcome, Ikuzu and Okacho. Jesser, we both said, bowing. I'm happy to see you both. You are very important to us, you know that. Thank you for the compliment, I replied. I have a little proposition for you both. Ochako and I exchanged a quick glance. Do you want to be stronger? Surprised, I raised an eyebrow, feeling suspicious. What do you mean, chapter end? I asked. I have some pretty interesting quirks for you too, he said with a crooked smile. I took a step back, a little shocked at what he just told us. I can tell that you are confused, he continued in a creepy tone, maintaining that unsettling smile. Let me explain it to you. He cleared his throat and let out a little chuckle, clearly showing that his mind was unstable. I have 2 quirks to give to you too, one for Ikuzu and one for Okacho. He paused for effect. The first quirk is called telepathy. It's exactly as it sounds. It allows the user to communicate with others' minds freely, but it can also allow the user to read minds and sometimes influence them. The second quirk I offer you is called copy-paste. To activate this quirk, the holder must lock eyes with someone, and the quirk will automatically be copied. They will then be able to use the copied quirk for 10 to 20 seconds. However, they cannot copy 2 quirks at the same time. He chuckled again. Now, the reason I want to give these incredible quirks to both of you is that you've proved yourselves very worthy to the League of Villains. I faked a big smile and excitement, and so did Ochako. I can't find enough words to thank you, I said with an overly enthusiastic tone. Oh my god, this is so cool. Thank you so much, exclaimed Ochako. Deep inside, a part of me was happy to be offered a quirk, considering I had been quirkless for 14 years before One for All, but the biggest part of me saw this opportunity as a troubling one. So, which one will you choose? He asked. This is such a great gift, but I can't accept that, sir, I replied with a neutral tone. Me neither, Ochako added. The guy's crooked smile faded. What did you say? We cannot accept this, Ister. Did I give you a choice? He said, ending his sentence with a psychotic chuckle. Suddenly, he stood up from his chair, and before we could react, he stabbed us both in the neck with a syringe. My vision chapter end. The young students from Class 1A were still recovering from the summer camp's villain invasion. For students, in particular, looked moved and confused. They were all placed in the same room, where Recovery Girl would visit them sometimes. They were sleeping until the door opened, revealing a group of 5 students entering. Kaminari, Jair, Ashido, Siro, and Ida. Hey guys, how are you feeling? Asked Ashido with a cheerful tone. Good, thank you, said Yaoyorozu with a faint smile. You don't seem very happy. It was true, the 4 students were feeling down. It's because of something that happened, Ribbit, said Azui. Everyone turned to face her. You guys remember that? Nope. Everyone's eyes saddened at the thought. Yeah, about Midoriya and Uraraka, said Kaminari. What about them? Well, started Yaoyorozu. Silence fell over the group. Yaoyorozu looked away, Azui looked down, Todoroki listened with a straight face, and Kirishima wore a visibly sad expression. They are the ones who did this to us, Todoroki finally said, his voice steady. Each of the 5 students gasped in shock. What do you mean? Asked Siro nervously. It means that Midoriya is the one who knocked me, Yaoyorozu, and Kirishima unconscious, and it was Uraraka who knocked out Azui, continued Todoroki. Ida's eyes widened in disbelief. Hearing this about his 2 best friends was a complete shock. Are you sure it was them? He asked. Yes. Food. It was disturbing. They were both wearing their hero costumes, but not the colorful version. This was a black and red version. They had black masks covering their eyes and gas masks. We still recognized them because of their hair, which was the same, just maybe a little longer, said Yaoyorozu. Everyone was left in shock again. No one knew what had happened to their friends. Wirt they on the villain's side? Asked Mina, her voice trembling. Many had tears in their eyes. Hearing about their normally cheerful friends doing something like that crushed them. We have to tell the teachers first, said Ida, heading for the door. I can't believe this, Kaminari whispered, his voice slightly trembling. Midoriya, bro. The dark-haired boy closed the door behind him. As he made his way to the teacher's office in the main building, a tear rolled down his cheek. His friends, his best friends, villains? He couldn't believe they would voluntarily switch to the wrong side. After a few minutes of running, he arrived at the teacher's office and knocked. A few moments later, Midnight opened the door. Oh, Ida, do you want something? I am here to report information concerning Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka's case. As soon as he said that, all the teachers stopped what they were doing. All Might rose and approached him. How did you get this information? All Might asked. The information comes from Kirishima, Yaoyorozu, Azui, and Todoroki. Please bring me to them. I am coming too, said Aizawa, rising from his chair. The 2 teachers followed Ida to the room. Good day, Kirishima, Azui, Todoroki, and Yaoyorozu. Now, Ida here told me that you have information concerning young Midoriya and young Uraraka. Is that right? Yeah, said Kirishima. They then proceeded to tell the teachers what they had seen. It was devastating. As the story unfolded, All Might could feel his smile fade away. He could not believe what he was hearing about his precious successor. The boy to whom he had passed his quirk had now become the thing he hated the most. He felt as if his mood had been crushed. We couldn't stop them, said Kirishima. I never saw this much power coming from both of them, especially Midoriya. He's right. Uraraka had a lot of difficulty fighting with her quirk just a few months ago, but yesterday, she was controlling it perfectly, raising herself and Midoriya into the air like it was nothing, said Azui. Silence enveloped the room. Aizawa looked at the floor, deep in thought. You kids go back to your houses, he said. We'll talk about this situation more tomorrow. Why yes, Mr. Aizawa. Everyone left the room, leaving the 4 injured students deep in thought. The next day, only 11 students attended class in 1A. 5 of these students sat at the far end of the classroom, looking gloomy, while the other 6 chatted as if nothing had happened. Noticing their classmates' expressions, they approached them. Good morning, Shiro, Ida, Kaminari, Jairu, and Ishido, said Hakigure. Good morning, Hakigure, said Shiro with a small smile. What's wrong? Silence fell again. The 5 students looked down at their feet. Everyone, sit down, said Aizawa as he entered the classroom. He stepped behind his desk. As you guys know, yesterday, class was dismissed because chapter end. He said with a big smile. All Might here will tell you what's happening right now. He stopped speaking and stepped aside, allowing All Might to take his place. All Might cleared his throat and began to explain the situation. Bakugo, the villains, their classmates, and Midoriya and Uraraka. Everyone already knew what had happened to Bakugo, but when they heard about their cheerful missing classmates, they were shocked. Not as shocked as Midoriya and Uraraka's close group of friends, but still. Maybe they were brainwashed, suggested Tokoyami. Everyone looked at him. What do you mean? Asked Kaminari. The League of Villains might have brainwashed them. Silence followed. I want to know, said All Might. Was there something suspicious about them in the last weeks you saw them? Everyone began to think. Now that we mention it, started Kaminari, they both looked tired and almost unwell before they disappeared. He's right. We confronted Midoriya about this, and after a few minutes, he ran out of class, said Shiro. Yeah. Uraraka did the same. I didn't know what was wrong with her, said the invisible girl in a sad tone. Well, thank you for this information, everyone, said All Might. I will be going now. Enjoy class. He walked out of the classroom, waving at the students. It took a few minutes for the class to settle down before lessons began. We need to do something, screamed the red-haired boy. All 9 friends were gathered in the hospital room. Azui, Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, and Kirishima were ready to be discharged. We need to leave it to the pro-heroes, said Azui. She's right, continued Ida. But we can't just leave Bakugo there, said Kirishima. I'm pretty sure he's okay over there, said Todoroki. With that temper of his, I'm sure he must be the one scaring the heroes, added Kaminari. Kirishima let out a little chuckle. But still, started Azui. Everyone turned back to her. If we break the laws and go save them, we're no better than villains. You all know we students can't use our quirks freely. Everyone froze when they heard that and looked down at the floor, deep in thought. Excuse me? I need to do a last checkup on the 4 students here, so if you could please leave, said the doctor. Chapter end. Chapter 11. I woke up with a headache, lying on the cold floor of a room I recognized immediately. It was the place where everything began, though the tables with restraints were gone. The crumbled wall in the back, used by Shigaraki to intimidate us, was still there. You might wonder why I continued to fight even though they thought I was brainwashed. The remote he showed us was always with him, and honestly, I felt I no longer deserved to be a hero. In the first month of our captivity, we were assigned missions that involved violence. I refused to kill anyone after the 2 innocent men we harmed in the first week. We only knocked them unconscious. This angered Shigaraki, and after each mission he would take out his frustrations on me. But it was better than taking lives. I stood up and noticed Ochako still unconscious beside me. I walked to the far end of the room where I found 2 beds. One had a note that read, "You will stay here for 2 days without food or water. Practice your newly acquired quirks, Ikuzu and Okacho." Newly acquired quirks? I whispered to myself, realization hitting me hard. Tears began to form in my eyes. I never wanted this. Suddenly, I heard mumbling behind me. I rushed to Ochako. Are you feeling okay, Ochako? Yeah, my head just hurts. What happened? Those syringes. They were for the quirks. What do you mean? That guy forced those quirks inside of us. She looked down, her expression heavy. Can I be honest with you, Izuku? Why? I replied, feeling a blush creep onto my cheeks. I think we're turning into monsters. Her words struck me deeply, but she was right. I didn't finish my thought before I heard her sobbing. I want to go home, Izuku, she said, tears streaming down her face. Seeing her like this broke my heart. I approached her and hugged her tightly. She hugged me back, and I felt my face heat up even more. I want to go home too, I said, my voice trembling. We both knew things would never be the same and that returning to UA was nearly impossible. Just know, Ochako, that we did this for our friends and family. Don't blame yourself too much, I tried to reassure her. Why? She looked up at me, managing a small smile. I returned her smile, and we both started to laugh through our tears, feeling a little less alone. I stood up and extended my hand to her. Here. She took my hand, and as I pulled her up, she accidentally tripped and fell on top of me. We both landed on the floor, blushing fiercely. I'm so sorry, she exclaimed. It's okay, I replied, smiling at her. I helped her up again, and she closed her eyes in embarrassment. She looks so cute, I thought. So, we're stuck here for 2 days, I sighed. Oh, to train our new quirks? She sighed. Even though I don't agree with this, I'm still curious. I chuckled at her shy expression. Try and activate it, I suggested. Okay. She closed her eyes again. After a few moments, she opened them. It didn't work. Maybe try concentrating on my thoughts? All right. I repeated a phrase in my mind over and over. I don't know if it worked. What did you hear? I hate villains, she replied, her eyes lighting up. It worked. That's what I was thinking, I said, beaming at her. Cool. Now try yours, she encouraged. Let me see. I locked eyes with her, and I felt something shift within me. I think something happened. Try and use my quirk. But I connected my fingers and suddenly started floating. What the? She burst into laughter at my startled expression. I shouted release and crashed back to the floor. That was the funniest thing I've seen in a while, she said, laughing uncontrollably. Hee hee. I scratched the back of my head, feeling embarrassed. But that was amazing. You got it on the first try. Yeah. After a while, realizing we had nothing else to do, we sat on the beds. I don't want to practice, she said. Me neither. Let's just chill for 2 days. I'm in, I replied, lying back on my bed. Good night, Izuku, she said. Good night to you too, I replied, and soon I fell asleep, exhausted from everything. Time skip, 2 days later. Ugh, I'm hungry, Ochako said dramatically. Has it been 2 days yet? I asked. I think so. For the past 2 days, we had mostly relaxed and done a little quirk training with our normal abilities. Just then, I heard the door unlock and swing open. Come on, said a villain with a strange mask, whose name was Mr. Chapterend. Compress, I think. He pushed us out of the room. Do whatever you want, just don't come to the bar. We have a special guest there. He walked back in the direction of the bar. I knew very well who the special guest was. It's Bakugo. I looked at Ochako and she spoke to me in my mind. Let's go take a peek. I nodded. We slowly made our way downstairs and stopped halfway, just enough to hear the conversation. We're sorry to tie you up this way, Katsuki Bakugo. There was silence. I'll get straight to the point, said Shigaraki in a low, raspy voice. I want you to join us, fake hero. Still nothing. Dabi, untie him. Twice do it, said Dabi. Why me? This is not very wise to untie him, Shigaraki, said another villain. Just do it. We heard metallic sounds and shuffling around. Here you go, and then I heard a loud explosion. It's Kaken, of course he would do that. I look up to All Might. Bakugo shouted with his usual bravado. Get lost, you idiots. Chapter end. Me and Ochako looked at each other, confused, but then we heard a loud boom. We turned to see a big hole where the door had been. There stood All Might, and the villains hissed in surprise. A little smile appeared on my face. Suddenly, I felt a hand grab me and pull me upstairs. "Wait!" I exclaimed, following her to her room. She grabbed both my hands, her face lighting up with excitement. "It's our chance, Izuku." "What?" "It's finally time to get out of here." But he still has the remote. Let's destroy it while he's distracted with all the commotion." I felt a surge of hope. "Yeah. Good idea," I said. She smiled at me, but then her expression turned serious as she looked down at the floor. "Even if we get kicked out of UA and if our friends and families ignore us, I want to know something." "Why yeah? Will you always stay with me?" she asked, tears brimming in her eyes. I smiled reassuringly. "Of course." In that moment, I leaned in and kissed her. It was unexpected and she seemed surprised at first, but then she kissed me back. She wrapped her arms around my neck, and I held her face in my hands. It felt magical. Never in the past few months had I felt so alive, happy, and comfortable. When she pulled back, I felt a pang of disappointment. I wanted that moment to last longer. She smiled at me, her cheeks flushed with color. "I am sorry, that was kind of unexpected." "It's okay," she said, placing a finger on my lips to quiet me. I smiled back at her, and she returned the gesture. "Well, let's prepare to get out of here," she said, her determination shining through. "Yeah. Let's meet in the corridor in 5 minutes." I nodded and made my way to my room. Once there, I quickly removed the hospital-like outfit the villains had made us wear for days. I pulled out my bag from the closet and began packing. I included bandages, the knives I had been given for self-defense, the little diary me and Ochako sometimes wrote in, my villain costume, and my old UA uniform, which was definitely too small for me now. I put on a dark hoodie, pulled the hood over my head, and added a black mask I used for outings. A pair of black briefs and my signature red shoes completed the outfit. I dashed out of my room, my bag slung over my shoulder, and found Ochako doing the same. "Come on. Let's go this way." I pointed toward a door at the end of the hallway that led to the roof. We raced through the corridor, dodging the chaos unfolding downstairs. As we reached the stairs, the ground shook, and debris fell around us. "Quick," she urged. We hurried up the stairs and finally emerged onto the rooftop. It was a scene of chaos. Heroes and villains clashed everywhere. I spotted MT Lady destroying what seemed to be all for one's lab. Then something caught my eye. "Hey, look there." I pointed. Ochako followed my gaze to see Kaken fighting off villains alone. Behind a wall, I noticed Kirishima, Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, and Ida. They were flying toward Kaken, shouting for him to grab Kirishima's hand. But just before they reached him, they stopped midair and fell to the ground, injuring themselves on impact. "Ouch!" Ochako exclaimed. I stared at them, my heart racing. "Should we help them, Izuku?" she asked, concern in her voice. I thought for a moment. If we didn't help, the villains would overpower them. But if we did, they might not trust us. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. "Let's go." I smiled at her and she smiled back. In an instant she was hanging onto my back. I activated One for All, full cowl, and jumped toward them while Ochako used her quirk to help us fly. We landed about 100 meters away. That's when I spotted a villain lurking behind the others, preparing to launch a powerful wind attack. I sprinted toward them, the wind whipping my hood back. Just before the attack could hit my classmates, I positioned myself in front of them to take the brunt of it. I formed a barrier with my arms and, using a new technique I had learned, One for All, energy shield, I countered the attack. Some of the force still broke through, pulling my hood off completely and revealing my green hair. After a tense moment, the attack finally subsided, leaving me out of breath. Midoriya? Chapter end. I heard someone call out, but I didn't turn my head. I saw Ochako starting to confront the villains, and I quickly followed her lead. "Hey, there! Come back here, you traitor!" Kaken shouted, but I couldn't respond. I needed to focus on the villains instead. I found myself facing a team of 3. "Weren't you part of the league, kid?" one of them sneered. "I was never part of such a disgraceful league," I yelled, launching a Detroit smash at them, knocking one down. I grabbed the 4 knives I had in my backpack and threw them with precision, hitting the villains in their legs and causing them to trip. I followed up with 2 quick punches to knock them out. As I approached, I pulled the knives from their legs and they flinched. I quickly cleaned the blades and noticed that Ochako had also finished dealing with the villains on her side. I ran to her, finding her behind a piece of the broken road. The scene around us was chaotic. "What do we do now?" I asked. "We need to destroy the remote that controls the bombs in the school," she replied. "That means we have to get close to Shigaraki," I said. "Yeah, let's go right now." Before we could move, bags were suddenly placed over our heads. I was surprised and tried to remove it, but the person holding it was too strong. I struggled for a moment, but it was useless. I felt something in the bag making me drowsy, and soon I passed out. When I woke up, I found myself in the same place as before, but a cloth was stuffed in my mouth, and my hands and feet were tied. I was still groggy when I looked up and saw 5 shadows looming over me. "He's waking up," one voice said. "Her too," another added. As I regained my senses, I made eye contact with Ochako, who looked panicked. In front of me stood Kaken, Ida, Kirishima, Yaoyorozu, and Todoroki. Chapter end. Chapter 13. "Midoriya, is that really you?" asked Kirishima. I nodded, knowing I had to respond well to gain just a little bit of their trust. "Do you know who we are?" asked Yaoyorozu. I nodded again, and so did Ochako. They exchanged glances, and after a moment of hesitation, Todoroki stepped forward and burned the cloth that bound us, freeing our mouths. I remained silent, looking down, feeling a wave of sadness wash over me. It hurt that they didn't trust us anymore, and the whole situation felt overwhelming. "We want some explanations," Yaoyorozu said directly. I glanced at Ochako, who looked back at me. She tilted her chin toward me, signaling me to start. "First of all, I want to say sorry for what we did at the summer camp." I cleared my throat and began recounting the entire story from the beginning. They seemed relieved that we hadn't been brainwashed. I shared everything from the USJ incident to our failed brainwashing, and Ochako filled in the rest. By the end of our story, tears were streaming down her face, while surprisingly, I remained dry-eyed. Our classmates looked shaken by what they had heard. "I can't believe this," Kirishima said, holding his head in disbelief. "Are you playing us, Deku?" Kaken asked, his tone challenging. "Why would I?" I blurted out. Silence fell over us until something unexpected happened. Yaoyorozu rushed to Ochako, tears flowing down her cheeks, and hugged her tightly. "I'm so sorry. I can't imagine the pain you've been through. I missed you so much, me and the girls, you have no idea." Ochako smiled through her tears, returning the embrace. "I'm so sorry for what I did to Azui at the summer camp." "It's okay, I'm sure she'll forgive you." They continued hugging while I remained on my knees, staring at the floor. The 4 boys stood in front of me, silent. "I don't know about you guys, but," Kirishima began as he approached me. He moved behind me and untied me. I was surprised. "I missed our little Midoriya," he said, extending his hand. I couldn't believe my eyes. "They trust me?" I thought. I took his hand and he pulled me up. "I'm just so glad you didn't fall to the dark side," Ida said, finally speaking. "After all, it wasn't your fault," Todoroki added. Kirishima patted me on the back and flashed a big smile. I smiled back. "That's our Midoriya." I laughed. Yaoyorozu and Ochako joined us. "I'm so happy you guys are back," Yaoyorozu exclaimed. "Us too," Ochako said cheerfully. "Right?" I added. "They didn't hurt you both too much?" Ida asked. "We chose not to mention the frequent beatings we endured." "No, it's okay," I said, smiling. "Now, how do we tell the others that you're on the good side?" Kirishima asked. I didn't respond. "It's our responsibility to regain everyone's trust," I said in a monotone voice. "It was our choice to act this way." They looked down a little sad. "Don't worry about us," I said, smiling. Ochako also beamed at them. "You guys," Kirishima started. "Your looks may have changed, but your insides haven't," Ida said. I let out a small laugh. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed around us, reminding us of the ongoing battle. "All right, what do we do now?" Kirishima asked. "We don't fight," Ida said. Remember, we agreed on a rescue mission, not a fight mission. Tisk, Kaken muttered, clearly unhappy with that. And you guys, what will you do? Yaoyorozu asked. I sighed. I still have matters to settle with Shigaraki. Me too, Ochako said, her tone resolute. Just be careful. Now that we both have the missing pieces of the puzzle, we don't want to lose them again so soon, Kirishima said sadly. Silence fell over us. Ida looked concerned, Kaken stared at the ground, deep in thought, and Yaoyorozu wore a worried expression, mirroring Kirishima's. Todoroki remained as stoic as ever. Come back alive, the red and white-haired boy said. I smiled. Of course. Not daring to look back, I took off, using full cowl. I jumped around, searching for Shigaraki. It was time to settle this once and for all. I found him just moments later. A fierce battle between All Might and All for One raged on. I felt a surge of excitement seeing All Might, but I had one job to do: destroy the remote and reclaim the time lost over the past 4 months. As I ran toward Shigaraki, I was momentarily knocked off balance by one of All Might's powerful punches. Quickly recovering, I dashed toward Shigaraki, who was flanked by Toga and D. Chapter End. But I didn't stop running. Their words only fueled my anger. As I got closer, I prepared one of my most powerful punches. One for all, Detroit Smash. My fist struck the ground just before them, creating a gust of wind that sent them crashing into the wall. When they got up, they looked startled. Shigaraki whispered, his voice low and unsettling. Oh, Ikukuen, why'd you do that? I can't believe this. Shigaraki continued, seemingly in a trance. I was never brainwashed, and I'm here to get my revenge, Tamura Shigaraki. I declared, preparing another powerful punch. I yelled out the name and smashed it right onto Shigaraki. He blocked it with one arm, catching me off guard and causing me to trip. Beside me, I noticed Ochako, who had just arrived, fighting with Toga. Dabi and Shigaraki were both ready to attack me. If this is how it is, then so be it, Shigaraki said in that eerie whisper. That was when the battle began. I threw multiple punches, dodging Dabi's blue flames and Shigaraki's knife attacks. Despite my efforts, I still took some hits, and after a few minutes of intense fighting, I started to tire. Then I saw it, the remote. It lay a few meters back, beside Kurojire's collapsed body. I concentrated hard and shouted Ochako's name in my mind, hoping she would hear me. Luckily, she understood my intent just by looking at me. Her eyes glowed red, a side effect of both our second quirks. The remote. It's beside Kurojire's body. Can you take care of it? Hell yeah. I'm gonna smash it into pieces, she replied, dodging Toga's knife attacks as she made her way to Kurojire. When she reached him, she grabbed the remote. That's where it ends, she shouted before smashing it with a rock. I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders and let out a satisfied sigh. But I wasn't paying attention. One of Shigaraki's knives struck my left shoulder. I screamed in pain as the knife made contact with my skin. Angered, I unleashed a flurry of attacks. After landing a few blows, I finally took Dabi down with a Detroit Smash. Only Shigaraki remained. Shigaraki was making strange noises until he let out a loud, screeching sound and charged at me. I could see his red eyes gleaming through his hand mask as he bolted toward me with incredible speed. Caught off guard, he reached me and slashed diagonally across my torso with a knife. Izuku! Ochako screamed in horror. She had finished with Toga but couldn't help me. The fight was too intense for her to intervene. Shigaraki continued to attack, making small cuts here and there, nothing serious. Then we heard a loud smash. A powerful wind hit us, forcing us to step back. I turned to see All Might, standing in front of the crowd and the TV cameras, having knocked down one for all in his weakened form. His secret? I said, panic rising in my voice. But All Might seemed unfazed. He pointed at the camera, which was broadcasting to the crowd on a big screen, and said, "It's your turn now." Tears began to form in my eyes. He then pointed up at the sky with one finger, regaining his iconic muscular form one last time. The crowd erupted in cheers. I let out a small laugh through my tears and smiled. All Might had triumphed. But I hadn't. Without realizing it, Shigaraki was suddenly in front of me. "Goodbye," he said. I was startled and had no time to react before he landed a hard blow to my stomach. It felt like a ton of bricks had fallen on me. I flew into the nearest wall, crashing through it. I slid down to the floor, feeling something hot on my back and growing dizzy. I couldn't move. "We will meet again, Izuku Midoriya," Shigaraki said before entering a black and purple portal, with Dabi and Toga under his arms. The portal closed behind them. He got away. I'm pathetic, I couldn't even stop him. I tried to move my hand, but my muscles wouldn't respond. My vision blurred, and my senses began to fade. I heard. T. Early Jord. H.LP. Shadows danced before my eyes. I couldn't recognize who was who, but there were at least 6 figures. M.ia.ia.ake. St.if chapter end. Part 1. A foot struck me hard in the ribcage. I coughed, spitting a little blood in the process. Another hit followed, and this time, I heard a crack. Izuku, watching me from behind Shigaraki, flinched at the sound. Ever since we were supposedly brainwashed, we both had been caught in this CYCL. We didn't want to hurt anyone, but Shigaraki was always furious with us. Normally, it was Izuku who took the brunt of the punishment, but this time, I was tired of seeing him hurt. I decided to take the hits myself. "Get up," Shigaraki commanded. I struggled to my feet, trembling. "You have lessons with Kurogyari," he said. "Even though, to be honest, you don't really need it." "Yeah, why are we still doing this?" Izuku protested. "It's so pointless." "Shut up. You're doing it because Kurogyari wants you both educated. Now go and don't bother me anymore. You better do your job next time." "Don't worry," I replied in a cheerful, mocking tone. Shigaraki walked away, and Izuku rushed to my side, careful not to touch my stomach. "I'm sorry, Ochako," he whispered. "It's okay, don't worry about me," I reassured him with a small smile. "I'll be okay this time." He smiled back, albeit slightly. Cameras surrounded us, except in our rooms. Rarely did we get to speak in a normal way. We made our way to Kurogyari's office, where he awaited us. A desk with 2 chairs was set up in the middle, resembling a classroom. He sat behind the desk, shuffling through various documents, some of which were villain profiles while others were hero profiles. I noticed Eraserhead and Present Mix profiles among them. Ikuzu and Okacho. "Sit down," he instructed. He glanced at me for a brief moment, then reached under his desk to retrieve a pouch filled with ice and water. "Here," he said, handing it to me. I pressed it against my stomach, feeling the pain slowly dissipate. "Thanks," I replied. He turned to begin the lesson, covering subjects like math, English, Japanese, science, and history. Kurogyari was the only one who refused to lay a hand on us, though he could be hurtful with his words at times. After 5 hours of lectures and note-taking, we were sent to our rooms until Shigaraki called us for today's mission. I closed the door behind me and collapsed onto my bed, staring at the ceiling. After a few minutes, I got up and rummaged through my drawer until I found what I was looking for, my diary. It was the only thing that witnessed all of Izuku's and my painful days. I took it, grabbed a pen, and sat on my bed to write. Day 72 Ochako. Today, it was me that took the beating for us. I'm tired of always seeing Izuku getting hurt. He has so many scars that I'm not even sure if they will all heal someday. It was the 8th time this month that we ran out of bandages for both of us. I wish I could cry. I wish I could scream. But I can't. We have to hold on just a little longer. Gain Shigaraki's trust and escape this hell without having our families and friends harmed. I am currently waiting for Shigaraki's next orders. I hope, from the bottom of my heart, that it's not a mission to hurt anyone. I trailed the pen across the paper, leaving a long line of ink. I don't want to become a monster. A tear slipped down my cheek onto the page, smudging the ink. I closed the diary and wiped the tears from my eyes. I made my way to the door and opened it, walking to Izuku's room. I slid the diary under his door, along with the pen. This was how we communicated, exchanging the diary after one of us wrote in it. Sometimes we skipped days if nothing interesting happened. I returned to my room and waited. After about an hour, we heard Shigaraki calling us. I quickly put on my villain costume and went downstairs. "What can I do for you today?" I asked, forcing a crooked smile and trying to appear menacing. Back to the present. A few hours after the battle. I woke up slowly, my eyes adjusting to a bright white light. I looked around and realized I was on a hospital bed, restrained with straps on my hands, feet and neck, just like 4 months ago in the villain's hideout. Panic set in as I scanned the room and spotted Izuku in a similar situation beside me, still unconscious. Bandages covered his arms, legs, and the top of his head. Memories flooded back, running to a badly injured Izuku, tears streaming down my face, blood everywhere, feeling dizzy, and then everything going black. I probably fainted because of my injuries, I thought, glancing down at my own bandaged arms. I sighed and looked at Izuku, who appeared peaceful. His green hair fell over his freckled face, having not been cut in a long time. Chapter end. The big dark bags under his eyes were still there, just like mine. The harsh training had made him taller, and his muscles were more defined. I felt a blush creep onto my cheeks at the thought and quickly turned my head away. The training had certainly affected us both. I had grown taller too, reaching 167 centimeters, while Izuku was nearing 177 centimeters. I could now control my quirk perfectly, without the previous side effects. Izuku, after revealing that his quirk was actually All Might's, had managed to raise his power to 40%. Pushing it to 50% would injure his hands, and anything above 60% could break his arms. Lost in my thoughts, I suddenly heard the door open. Panic surged through me, and without thinking, I pretended to be asleep. I let my body go limp and closed my eyes. I heard several people enter, but no one spoke. "Oh my God! Are they really Midoriya and Uraraka?" a familiar voice asked. "Yes," replied another voice, which I recognized as Aizawa. Relief washed over me. We weren't at the villain's hideout anymore. I contained my joy and kept a straight face. "Izuku! Izuku! Wake up, but don't open your eyes," I thought, using the second quirk I had acquired a few days ago to communicate with him. There was silence at first, and then, "Huh? Where am I?" I heard him say, his thoughts brushing against mine. "Hey, it's me. Don't open your eyes. What's going on? We're at U.A. W. What? Are you serious? Just W are free. I can't believe this. But why do I feel like I'm attached to something?" I quickly explained the situation and what chapter end. Chapter 15. Midoriya's point of view. We had caught them near the villain's hideout. "Wait, so they really are?" I stammered. "Yes, they were with the villains all along," Aizawa continued. I heard some shocked murmurs. "Wait, they were not with the villains for real?" Kirishima exclaimed. "We've told you that. Did you consider the fact that you 5 might have been tricked?" "They did spend 4 months with the villains," Shiro pointed out. "They didn't seem to be lying," Todoroki added. "Do you have proof?" Tsuyu asked. "Well, we told you everything they said to us," Kirishima shouted. "I'll be back later. I've got something to do," Aizawa said, and I heard a door open and close. Silence fell for a moment. "I still don't believe they weren't brainwashed," Kaminari blurted out. "Me neither," Jiraiya chimed in. "After all, they did beat 5 of our classmates without hesitation, right?" I stiffened at that. She was right. But, and they could have escaped at the summer camp too, the invisible girl added. "They were threatened," Ida argued. "Didn't you say they faked being brainwashed? And for what reason, huh?" Shiro shot back, his voice rising. The tension in the room was palpable. Kirishima continued to defend them. "Because that JRK still had that Shut up, you guys!" Kaken finally yelled. Everyone fell silent. "It's pointless to argue like this," he said, moving closer. I heard him grab something. "If you really want proof, then let's look through Deku's bag." He threw my bag onto the floor. I opened my eyes slightly. The entire class 1A was there, all 18 of them, surrounding my belongings. I quickly closed my eyes again. "Come on. There must be some kind of clue in there," Kaken urged. "Ida, you're the class president. Do it," Kaminari said. Okay." Of course. Ida replied, and I heard footsteps followed by a zipper. Okay, let's see. There was a pause. So that's the costumes you guys were talking about, he said, frustration creeping into his voice. I felt embarrassed for having kept the villain costume. I remembered Ochako had put some things in there too. There are knives in here? Hagakure screamed. This is definitely not something a hero would carry around casually, Tokoyami remarked. Let's look further, Ida said, his voice slightly trembling. Guilt washed over me. Why didn't I just throw that bag away? But then I remembered the diary. I think Ochako remembered too. Oh my god, did you keep the diary? Weiss, I did. But I'm sorry, I thought it would be a good idea. I know this might sound weird, but this is the only way for us to gain their trust. You might be right. Let's just see what happens, she said in my mind before cutting our connection. There's nothing else in here, Ida said. So, the only things in there were the 2 villain costumes, knives, a pink shirt with flowers, and bandages? So you asked. Hey wait, there's another part to the bag. Yaoyorozu exclaimed. I heard quick footsteps, probably her running to the bag and another zipper opening. Let's see what's in there. She pulled something out, and immediately, the room fell silent. The beeping of our heart monitors was the only sound. Midoriya's UA uniform, Kirishima exclaimed. I told you guys. He wasn't brainwashed. Why would he keep it then? Wait, there's something else, Ida said. Silence filled the room again. What's that? A notebook? So you asked. Probably one of Deku's hero notebooks, Kaken said. I've seen what they look like, and this is definitely not one, Ida replied. I heard the diary being opened, its pages quickly flipped. It's a diary! Yaoyorozu exclaimed. I had enough of not seeing what was happening, so I opened my eyes a little. My green hair covered my eyes, so no one could see me. Yaoyorozu stood with the diary in her hands, Ida by her side. My things were spread all over the floor. Yaoyorozu's face lit up with hope, but as she shuffled through the diary, her expression changed. Oh my god! Covered her mouth with her hand. I can't read any more of this, she said, her voice trembling as she handed it to Ida. Read some of it out loud, Ida, Kaminari urged. All right. He cleared his throat and began. Day 1 Ochako. Me and my classmate, Izuku Midoriya, decided to chapter end. Chapter 15. Day 15. It's been 2 weeks since the blackmailing started. Every night, we were sent out to complete multiple tasks, returning around 2 in the morning. I was exhausted and just wanted to sleep. Our classmates began to notice my fatigue, and I didn't have the energy to engage with them. Hero training suffered as a result. Both Ochako and I were struggling. Then something happened yesterday. My friends approached me with questions, and in a panic, I ran out of the room with Ochako following me. Behind the school gates, the villains ambushed us again. We woke up restrained in a chair, and they injected us with something. When we regained consciousness in the rooms they assigned us at the hideout, I overheard them discussing brainwashing. They had failed to brainwash us, and that's where I am now, after telling Ochako. A silence fell over the classmates. Continue, Ida urged, his voice trembling. Day 35. Today, I experienced the worst pain I've ever felt. Izuku and I failed to complete our tasks on purpose, and I chose to take the punishment instead of him. It was horrible, we couldn't defend ourselves. I endured the knife slashes, kicks, and punches from Shigaraki without flinching, knowing that any sign of resistance would only lead to more pain. After it was over, Izuku took me upstairs and bandaged my wounds, apologizing repeatedly. And that's it for today. I can't hear any more of this, Mina said, her voice shaking. By now, almost all the girls were in tears. Go to the most recent entry, Kirishima suggested. I want to hear his part of the story. Ida flipped through the pages. Day 115. I've lost count of the beatings I've received. It didn't even hurt anymore, as long as Ochako wasn't the one suffering. Today, we ran out of bandages for the 5th time in 2 weeks. I got Shigaraki's permission to go out and buy some with Ochako. After purchasing the bandages and other items, I had some money left over. I bought a pink shirt for Ochako, even though she insisted it wasn't necessary. We sat by the fountain and overheard our friends talking. In a panic, Ochako wrote a quick message and threw it to them. She took my hand, and we both ran away, relieved to know they were safe. That's the day we went to the mall, Yaoyorozu said softly. They went through all of that just for us? Tsuyu asked, tears streaming down her cheeks. Suddenly, the whole class turned toward our supposedly unconscious bodies. Just then the door opened. Aizawa-sensei, exclaimed Ida, regaining his composure. I heard what happened, Aizawa said, his expression serious. All Might, in his weakened form, entered the room as well. It was the same for me, he added, sadness evident in his eyes. Young Midoriya and young Uraraka went through a really hard time. They showed incredible courage, and despite the toll it took on their bodies and minds, they never gave up. This is the best example of what it means to be a hero. Even though it has been horrible for them, especially for young Midoriya, I am proud of them. Then, something he said shocked me. And I am more than proud to have them here as UA students. Tears began to stream down my cheeks uncontrollably. Beside me, I could hear others sobbing. Everyone turned toward us, surprised. Thank you, I managed to say with a small smile, lifting my head as tears continued to fall. Class 1A would be reunited again. Chapter end. After a lot of thinking, I've decided to add changes to Midoriya's second quirk and also to Ochako's. Quirk, copycat. Tip, Midor. Range, unlimited. Information, allows the user to copy anyone's quirk freely as long as they can see the person. The user can only copy one quirk at a time and can maintain it for 2 minutes. Drawbacks. Copying too many quirks in a row can lead to physical fatigue, dizziness, and blurred vision. Quirk, mind control. Tip, Midor. Range, unlimited. Information, allows the user to send thoughts into another person's mind, read thoughts, and influence them. Drawbacks. If used for more than 15 minutes, the user will experience similar drawbacks as the copycat quirk. After I said that, everyone came running to untie us, crying and laughing at the same time. Midoriya, my dude. It's so nice to have you here again. Yeah, I said, wiping my tears. Well, one thing hasn't changed, you two still cry a lot. Kaminari joked. Everyone laughed. Hey guys. Yaoyorozu asked. Is what you said in the diary true? An automatic silence fell over the room. I could see that Ida and Yaoyorozu were both worried and concerned about what was written. Yeah, everything's true, Ochako answered. Guys. She ran into our arms and hugged us tightly. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have been there to protect you. It's okay, it's in the past now, Ochako reassured her. No one dared to talk. Let's not talk about it anymore, I said, flashing a big smile at everyone with my thumbs up. Freaking Deku, Kaken said, rolling his eyes. Again, the whole class let out a laugh. When can Midoriya and Uraraka return to class? Kirishima asked, turning to the teachers. As soon as they can, Aizawa replied. They first need to go to the infirmary for a checkup. Hell yeah! Kaminari screamed. We've got so much to tell you guys. Mina exclaimed, holding Ochako's shoulders and looking at me. You can tell them later. They need to be checked on now, Aizawa said. Alright. See you later, guys. Kirishima shouted as the whole class left with Aizawa, leaving only All Might with us. Midoriya, he said, approaching me. I'm so glad to see you again, I said. He slowly approached me and hugged me. I'm just glad you're okay, young Midoriya. A few minutes later, Recovery Girl entered the room. It's been quite a long time since I last saw you, she said to me. I let out a nervous giggle. Sit down, both of you. She approached us and gave us multiple kisses on our cheeks. It healed some of our recent scars, but most of them couldn't be healed. I'm sorry, it seems that the rest can't be healed. These scars are too old for me to treat. It's okay, Recovery Girl. You're amazing, Ochako said, smiling at her. Ah, aren't you just the sweetheart? She cleared her throat. Now, I want you two to rest. Tomorrow, you will be discharged to go to school. Both Ochako and I looked at each other. I can't wait. Me neither. Recovery Girl smiled. Now, sleep. Both of you, she said, jumping off her chair. She grabbed All Might by the shirt. Come on, Toshi. I know that you're happy to have them back, but let them rest. Of course. Rest well, you too, he said before leaving the room with Recovery Girl. The door closed behind them, leaving us alone. Ochako and I chatted for a few minutes on my bed before we both started to feel sleepy. I'm so happy right now, she said, resting her head on my shoulder. Me too, I replied. She smiled before closing her eyes. My face turned red. She squeezed my arm tightly, and I didn't want to move, not wanting to wake her up. Well, I guess it won't hurt just this once, I thought before drifting off to sleep. I woke up to bright light shining through the window. I yawned and realized that Ochako was still holding onto my arm. Hey, wake up, whispered. She groaned and opened her eyes. When she saw me, her face suddenly turned red. Izuku. Sorry. I became embarrassed too. It's okay. I fell asleep too. Oh. She stood up and walked to her bed. Hey, what is this? She said, pointing at a box on the floor beside the door. She picked it up and brought it back to the beds. I opened it up. It's the uniforms, I said. Both of us gasped in amazement as we took out the uniforms. They hadn't changed at all. She chapped her end. We both sat down on our beds. I can't wait to start class again, she said enthusiastically. I agreed. Oh, and I have this for you. She approached me and began to play with my hair, gently pulling it back with a hairpin to clear my vision. Here you go. It's not the best, but it'll do until you get your hair cut. Thank you, Ochako, I replied, and she let out a nervous chuckle. Just then, the door swung open, revealing All Might. You are all awake. Come on. You're going back to your class chapter end. Ready? I opened the door to our class. When people saw us enter, they immediately rushed over. Ah, MidoriyaXUraraka, screamed Kirishima as he hugged us both. Hi everyone, I said, waving. Hey guys, said Ochako. We made our way to our seats. It's good to have you both back in here, said Ida. Yeah, I've missed this, I replied. Me too. We chatted for a few minutes until Aizawa told us to take our seats. Alright students, before we discuss hero training, I have an announcement. He cleared his throat. UA has become a boarding school. You will be living in dorms starting tomorrow. The entire class cheered. Oh yeah, we get to live all together, said Kirishima. Isn't it cool, Bakubro? Asked Kaminari. Meh. He thinks it's cool, confirmed Kaminari. The whole class laughed. Now be quiet. This afternoon, you will have hero training with All Might. The activity will be the same as the one you did on your second day here. It will be a 2 versus 2 match. One team will be villains and the other will be heroes. The goal is to see if your teamwork, strategy, and strength have improved. He spoke a little more before we moved on to our regular classes, like English with present mic. Then it was lunchtime. Ida, Todoroki, Uraraka, and I sat at a table with our plates. I can't wait to live in the dorms, said Ochako, excited. This is a great idea, started Ida. They probably decided to do this after the many villain attacks, like yours. Yeah. It's probably safer, I said with a small smile. I was still scared, worried about what Shigaraki might do. I swear to protect you all, class rep's honor, said Ida, making his usual hand gesture. Same for me, said Todoroki. Yeah. Ochako giggled. Then the first bell rang. Well, let's go to class, said Ida. We entered the classroom and sat down. A few seconds later, All Might, in his smaller form, came in. Hello everyone. Are you all ready? The class screamed yes in unison. Great. Go put on your hero costumes and join me in training grounds. Everyone made their way to the locker room, but Ochako and I stayed back. All Might? I asked. Yes, young Midoriya? What are we going to wear? I asked, feeling a bit embarrassed. Oh, I didn't think about that. Let them wear someone's P uniform, suggested Aizawa. Everyone's in P right now, answered All Might, thinking. An idea crossed my mind, but I hesitated. Are you thinking about the same thing I thought about? Asked Ochako. You mean the costume? No, I'm not wearing that again. Aizawa and All Might looked confused. May I ask what you're talking about? Well, We both kept our costumes, I said, feeling embarrassed. But? Asked Aizawa. Because it was both fireproof and waterproof. I thought it would have been useful to know how it was made, I explained. Good thinking, young Midoriya. But unfortunately, I don't see what else you could wear. What? I said. It'll only be Class 1A there, said Aizawa. No one else but them will see your villain outfit. He said that as if it was nothing. I sighed, annoyed. Let's just go for it, said Ochako. It's just a costume. And it's only for this one time. Yes. I will ask the support groups to adjust your old costumes. They will be ready for the next hero training, said All Might. Fine, I said. Ochako smiled at me, and I couldn't help but smile back. Go change now, said Aizawa. Yes, go to the place I told you to go after you're done, continued All Might. All right. We both left the classroom and made our way to the hospital room we were in last night. I grabbed my bag, opened it, and took out the outfits. Here is it. She looked at the outfit. I know. This isn't the best, but just for this one time, will it be okay? She asked. Yeah. It's okay, Ochako. Don't worry too much. I ruffled her hair, and she giggled. Let's go. I headed to the boys' locker room while she went to the girls'. No one was there. They had already changed and left. I checked my locker and it was still there. I opened it and saw my old hero costume. I took it out and realized it was now clearly too small for me. I sighed as I put on my villain costume, which was exactly the same as my old hero costume but in black and red. I forgot about the League of Villains written on the back of it. This is just great. I didn't put the hood or mask on yet. I stepped out chapter end. He shuffled through the box. Alright, here they are. Team A, Uraraka and Kaminari. Team B, Siro and Mineta. Team C, Ida and Hagakure. Team D, Yaoyorozu and Aoyama. Team E, Shuji and Ishido. Team F, Midoriya and Kirishima. Team G, Tsuyu and Jair. Team H, Kuda and Tokoyami. Team I, Bakugo and Todoroki. Team J, Sato and Ojiro. He continued, now, I will make the matches. He had the same boxes from a few months ago labeled villains and heroes. First match, Team J as villains and Team E as heroes. Second match, Team G as villains and Team A as heroes. Third match, Team D as villains and Team C as heroes. Fourth match, Team H as villains and Team B as heroes. And finally, the fifth match will be Team F as villains and Team I as heroes. Midoriya, my dude. We're together, Kirishima exclaimed. Yeah. Midoriya replied, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. Now, Team J and E, go chapter end. I put on my mask and mouth gear and followed Kirishima inside the building to our weapon. You got a plan? He asked. Yeah. We are up against Bakugo and Todoroki, which means Todoroki will likely come for the weapon while Bakugo stays to fight. Do you want me to protect the weapon? Yes. With your hardening, you'll easily break through Todoroki's ice. He won't use his fire, because if he does, the bomb may explode, and we will win. I can break his ice. Yeah. Alright. You take care of Bakugo, right? Yes, I'll protect the weapon from the outside. Nice plan, dude. Let's go. Kirishima stayed behind, using the objects around him to shield the fake bomb while I moved through the corridors. That's when I heard the siren go off, signaling that the heroes had entered the building. Loud explosions echoed from a distance. I hid behind a corner and waited. As Bakugo passed, I was about to strike, but he anticipated my move and unleashed an explosion. Here you are, Deku. Kaken. I kept a straight face, trying to appear intimidating. Can you even see anything with that thing, loser? Yes, I replied. He launched a series of explosions at me, which I dodged. But he was quick, and some managed to hit me, tearing through my uniform. Seem here. Don't run away. I took a few steps back, gathering my strength, and landed a powerful blow in the air. Detroit smash. I controlled my power to keep it under 30%. A strong gust of wind pushed Kaken back several meters. He muttered. He continued attacking, using new moves I had never seen before. I struggled to keep up. No holding back now, I guess? I activated one for all, full cowl and jumped. Then, shouting earth smash, I slammed my fists onto the floor. Kaken flew back into the wall, knocked unconscious. I sighed and ran to where Kirishima was. When I arrived, I noticed he was struggling. Midoriya. He was trapped in ice. I punched through it, freeing him just as Todoroki shot a wave of ice at me. My foot got stuck, but I quickly pulled it out. Air kick. I threw a kick, but Todoroki dodged it. Fun fact, it was Ochako who named that kick. We continued to fight until we were told we had only a minute left. Time for the final, I thought. New York smash. I shouted. I landed a powerful punch that sent Todoroki flying back, knocking him out. However, it damaged my hand. I had used 50%, which was too much, but I had to. 40% wouldn't have been enough to take him down. I breathed, holding my arm. My sleeve had burned. We won. Kirishima exclaimed. Yeah. I replied enthusiastically. Bakubro sure didn't hold back. Make sure to visit Recovery Girl, he told me. Sure. We heard All Might announce that the winners were the villains. I exited the building and made my way back to the rest of the class. Izuku! Ochako screamed. She ran to my side. Are you okay? Yeah, I just overdid it a bit. It even burned your costume. She started checking my arm to see where it hurt. In the back, our classmates looked at us with knowing smiles. Why are you looking at us like that? I stammered. Oh, nothing, Jiru said, smirking. The class laughed. Aizawa entered the room. Bakugo and Todoroki are okay. The activity is over now. Before we made our way back to the lockers, everyone reviewed their mistakes and strengths with All Might. As everyone left, All Might asked me to stay. What's wrong? Best worried. Oh, nothing. You did wonderfully earlier. I just want to know. At what percentage are you? I'm at 40%. I can raise it to 50%, but it causes some damage. Oh, alright. Good job, young Midoriya. I'm proud of you. Thank you, All Might. He smiled, and I smiled back before heading to the locker room. Hey, Midoriya. What did All Might have to tell you? Ida asked. Oh, nothing important, just some things about the costume they're making right now, I lied. Oh, okay then. I undressed, and when I removed my shirt, the room fell silent. Midoriya, you're back? Kirishima said sadly. I looked down. It's okay, it doesn't hurt. It's all in the past now, I said with a smile. They remained silent but still wore worried expressions. I hurried to put on my uniform and stepped out. Outside, Ochako was waiting for me. There you are, she said, spotting me. She walked next to me and we st chapter end. I went back to the hospital room while Ochako stayed behind with the girls. When I arrived, All Might was waiting for me. Young Midoriya, he called out. Hi again, I replied, trying to keep my spirits up. You remember? Your mother, right? As soon as he said that, I felt my heart sink. No, don't tell me Summit. Nothing has happened to her, he reassured me. I sighed in relief. But when I visited her about a month ago, she looked depressed. I'm going to go see her right now, I declared, cutting him off. You can do. I didn't let him finish. I dashed out of the room and ran through the corridors until I got outside. The group was standing by the doors, waving at me, but I was too distracted to respond. Izuku, someone called out, but I kept running towards my house as fast as I could. Tears began to escape my eyes as I ran. I had sadly forgotten about her, and I deeply blamed myself. With the help of full cowl, I reached my apartment in just a few minutes. I knocked on the door. Who's there? Came a faint voice. Then the door opened. Mom. Izuku. I hugged her tightly as I burst into tears. Izuku. Oh my God, Izuku, my little boy, she exclaimed, holding me back just as tightly. She had dark circles under her eyes, similar to mine, and she looked thinner, which worried me. When did you get back? She asked through her tears. I'm here, Mom. Don't worry about me anymore. She let go of me and held my shoulders, smiling through her tears. What happened to you, Izuku? Where were you? What's this? Why do you have scars? I'll explain everything, Mom. I told her everything I had shared with the others. By the end of my explanation, She was in tears again. I'm so sorry, Izuku. It's okay, Mum. What's important is that I'm here with you. You're a strong and brave boy, my darling. I'm so proud of you for going through this and coming back in one piece. Thanks, Mum. I smiled at her. You also got taller. I never thought you would get taller than 165 centimeters. You look handsome, Izuku. I felt a rush of embarrassment. Thanks, Mom. She smiled at me and we caught up for a few hours. She even made me my favorite dish as a welcome back gift. I stayed the night and planned to return to UA in the morning. Before I left, I told my mom that I would be moving into the dorms. She was okay with it, as long as I visited at least once every 3 days. I packed a few things that I would probably need and took off after hugging my mom. Everyone was waiting in front of UA with their luggage, ready to move in. I joined Class 1A. Midoriya. Your mom agreed too? Kirishima asked. Yes, with conditions? Great. Everyone is here. Awesome. Kaminari shouted. Then, Aizawa came and asked us to follow him. We made our way to our dorm. They moved in, visited rooms, all that jazz. You've probably read it or watched it already, so let's skip ahead a few days. 3 days later, everyone was finally moved in. Over those days, Ochako and I got used to being back. It was fun, and we both realized how much we had missed this place. But there was still that horrible secret they kept from everyone. An important secret. I had thought about it constantly, and it was eating away at my mind. I talked about it with Ochako, and while she was also worried, she advised me not to dwell on it. Let's only use these quirks if necessary, she said. I walked into class, greeted everyone with a smile, and sat down at my place. Aizawa walked in and told everyone to settle down. Alright guys. Today, we will be going on rescue training. Wait, do you mean we're going back to the? Yes, the USJ. The security system has been upgraded significantly, and there are almost no chances of villains getting in. Aizawa turned towards me. Also, Midoriya and Uraraka, your hero costumes are ready. I smiled at that news. Now, go get ready, and be outside in 15 minutes. Wait, we're going now? Kirishima asked. Yes. Don't be late, Aizawa replied. Everyone rushed to the locker room to put on their costumes. I opened mine and saw my new outfit. It was similar to before but larger and had more protection around the arms, just as I had requested. When I stepped out, I saw Ochako. She looked adorable in her pink outfit. Izuku. Your costume is still as awesome, she said. Thanks. Why you too? We both laughed and I could see her blush. Let's go, if we don't want to be late. We hurried to the chapter end. I looked all around. Security systems were installed everywhere around the huge dome. There was almost no chance of any villains getting in without the alarm going off. Okay everyone. Now that you've been separated into groups, I want each of your groups to go to the assigned zone right now. And that's what everyone did. I was in a team with Kaminari in the downpour zone, and the group we were meant to save were Yamamo and Tsuyu. It would be a great training exercise. I brushed off this weird feeling and put on a smile, accompanying Kaminari and the 2 girls to the place, talking and laughing. I missed those moments a lot, and those 3 were really fun to talk with. As we walked, I also made a plan. We're here, said Yamamo. We looked up at the huge building and entered it. The girls went their own way to the place 13 told them to go, and I stayed behind to tell Kaminari some parts of my plan. He gave me a thumbs up. The countdown started. Go heroes! Immediately we started to run in. The wind and heavy rain hit us right in the face. I wasn't expecting it to be that strong. Let's go between those 2 buildings, shouted Kaminari. We both ran between 2 buildings. I'll punch the air, and it will create some wind to counter the rain. At that moment, I want you to make a run for it and advance as far as possible. Alrighty. We got out from between the buildings, and I punched the air like All Might did. Just as I predicted, it countered the rain. I was grateful for Kaminari's quick reaction as he made a run for it. Good job, he screamed. You too. I shouted back through the wind. I kept using my tactic until we finally reached the place where the girls were. Kaminari's quirk wasn't particularly useful in that situation, but teamwork was what mattered here. We made it back to the entrance all together and in one piece when we heard 13th's voice through the walls. Good job, you two. You were the second to finish, in 10 minutes and 23 seconds. Wait here until everyone is finished. I will tell you when to come back. There was a silence before Kaminari sighed. Your air punches worked pretty well, dude, he said, poking my shoulder. You were good too, Kaminari. I wish we could have been the heroes, said Yamamo, sulking. To be honest, I saw this exercise as good practice for us too, Tsuyu started. She paused. Because we need to learn as heroes that we can't always save everyone and that we also need to be saved sometimes. You're right, I said. Good thinking too. Kaminari added with a huge grin, patting Tsuyu's back. She smiled. We talked for a few minutes before 13th's voice came back. All right, time's up. Everyone, go back to the entrance. The message ended, and the four of us made our way back. Good job, everyone, said 13, with a tired Aizawa beside him. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Everyone finished in time. The first team was Todoroki and Jairu's in the landslide zone, the second was Midoriya and Kaminari's in the downpour zone, the third was Uraraka and Sato's in the ruin zone, the fourth was Bakugo and Mineta's in the conflagration zone, and lastly, Tokoyami and Ida's in the mountain zone. The flood zone wasn't used today. Congrats, everyone. 13 then left, allowing Aizawa to proceed with our feedback. He told me that my approach was good but risky. If I had been in smaller spaces, it might not have worked as well. I took notes on what he said. But as he was telling Kaminari what he could improve, 13 interrupted him. Get down. Glass shattered everywhere. Everyone suddenly dropped to their knees and covered their heads with their hands. What the hell? Screamed Kirishima. Through my arms and the thick smoke I saw shadows. Multiple shadows. And in front of me, Shigaraki. Villains attacked from all sides, screamed 13. There's more than 100 of them. I could see the panic and fear in the normally bored eyes of our teachers, and even Kaken had that look. But I didn't. I was furious. Aizawa-sensei. What do we do? Asked Ida. Well, since the alarms went off, I'm guessing Uraraka knows about it and is on their way, but... He put on his goggles. I grant you all permission to fight. There are a lot of villains, and we need as many of you as possible to combat them. Everyone prepared for battle. Let's go, screamed Ida. Everyone cheered back in encouragement. Accompanied by Ochako, Ida, and Todoroki, we made our way to a corner of the huge place to confront some villains. We began to fight them off. It was 20 against Todoroki raised a wall of fire that hit two villains in their faces, knocking them out cold. Ida, as quick as possible, started to chapter end. A villain had managed to slash my arm, while another had knocked the breath out of Ida, causing him to cough. Todoroki had a few bruises here and there. Are you okay, Ochako? I asked. She nodded in response. So, what do we do now? Todoroki inquired. We go back to the middle. Maybe our friends will need help there, Ida suggested. Everyone agreed, and we began to run back to the center. As we approached, I was taken aback. Why weren't the heroes there yet? Chapter end. Chapter 21. I quickly snapped my head toward the sound I heard. Shigaraki. I hissed. There he was again, looking down at us from the top of a building. Ochako, Ida, and Todoroki stood beside me, ready to fight. The others were already engaged in their own battles. My sweet little underlings, he began, feigning tears. But, did you leave me? A chill ran down my spine from the overwhelming bloodlust radiating from him. Suffer, he screamed, his voice echoing like thunder. He raised his hands, and snake-like tentacles spread from them, releasing a thick mist. Instinctively, I covered my mouth and nose. Seeing me do this, Ochako, Todoroki, and Ida followed suit. But then I heard the sound of collapsing bodies behind me. I turned just in time to see my classmates sprawled on the ground, conscious but unable to move. This gas makes your legs and arms go numb, making you completely useless. Shigaraki taunted, his eyes glowing red through his mask, a sign of another quirk activated. Why didn't you fall too, you traitors? He screamed, completely unhinged. The only ones still standing were us four, Shigaraki, Dabi, and Toga. Dibi, Toga, attack the students, leave these rats to me. Shigaraki ordered. Instantly they leaped over us, landing behind. Dabi began attacking Todoroki while Toga unleashed her chaotic energy on Ida. Poor Ida, I thought as I heard her maniacal giggles. I turned to face Shigaraki, but he had vanished. Sirpi. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my left side. I looked down to see the red tentacles from earlier piercing my right arm. They retracted and I screamed in agony. Izuku no. I heard Ochako call out, her voice filled with concern. I gritted my teeth and looked up at Shigaraki, who grinned through his mask. What? Having trouble? He taunted. Then use your second quirk, he whispered, his voice dripping with malice. I growled in frustration. You piece of... Another wave of pain hit me, and I realized I couldn't use my quirk with my right arm in such pain. DMN, he's smart? I thought bitterly. Shigaraki's eyes flickered back to normal for a moment before a massive robotic arm replaced his right arm. Watch out, MidoriyaXUraraka. Kirishima shouted, pointing toward Dabi and Toga. I glanced over to see Ida and Todoroki on the ground, barely conscious. This is not going well. Toga lunged at me, followed closely by Dabi. Izu. I saw Ochako trying to warn me, but her voice was cut off by Dabi's flames, which burned her arm as she tried to shield her face. Ochako! I shouted, momentarily distracted, and felt a knife graze my cheek. Oops, I missed. Toga giggled, her voice filled with manic delight. Time skip, a few minutes later. I was breathing, a knee on the floor, blood trickling from my forehead and mouth. I was teetering on the edge of consciousness, having lost a lot of blood. I looked to my side and saw Ochako in a similar state. Sirpi, I whispered, tears of pain stinging my eyes. My classmates were desperately trying to break free from the immobilizing mist, but nothing was working. The effect lasted for at least 30 minutes, and we had only been trapped for 15. MidoriyaXUraraka. I heard someone whisper. I turned my throbbing head to see Ida, bloodied and leaning against a wall. Do it? Ochako snapped her head toward him in surprise. I widened my eyes at his words. I know you're hiding something. I felt it the day you came back to class. Just know that whatever you do, no one will call you monsters, he managed to say, before a cry of pain escaped him. I looked at Ochako and with tears in her eyes, she nodded at me. In that moment I snapped. I activated my other quirk, feeling my eyes glow bright red, a surge of energy coursing through me as I stood up, numb to the pain from adrenaline. Oh, getting serious? Shigaraki asked, giggling. Anger surged within me as I searched my classmates' shocked faces for Kaken. I'll have to borrow your quirk, Kaken? He glared at me and I felt a powerful energy enter me. In an instant, I bolted toward Toga at an unnatural speed, unleashing Kaken's explosions and knocking her back into a rock, rendering her unconscious. I heard a scream and turned to see Dabi, clutching his head in agony, while Ochako stood over him, a determined look in her eyes. We both turned to Shigaraki, who looked panicked, clearly not expecting us to fight back so fiercely. Oh! He screamed, launching an attack with his new arm. Chapter end. I looked towards the sound. Through my blurry vision I saw the heroes. I smiled. I looked at Ochako, unable to hear anything clearly, but I could faintly hear our names being called, along with blurry faces and bodies shuffling around. I felt her lips on mine as we both slipped into a dark slumber. 2.5 years later. Can you believe it? Tomorrow, we're graduating, said an excited brunette. Yeah. It's unbelievable how far we've come, I replied with a smile. She agreed, locking her eyes with mine. I leaned in and kissed her forehead. I'm happy to be with you, I said. Me too. I've had such good years by your side, she said with a giggle. After the second villain attack at the USJ, Shigaraki had fled yet again. To this day, no one had heard from him. In the last few years, things had been relatively calm. Our class stayed the same for 3 years, and we decided that after graduating, we would create a hero agency with all of us, 20 in total. Everyone was excited and couldn't wait. "Wanna come over to my place tonight? My mom misses you already," I asked her. She giggled. "Yeah, sure. We happily made our way to my home, talking about tomorrow. But as we passed near an alley, I felt a breeze behind my neck. I quickly spun around, alerting Ochako at the same time. "What's wrong?" she asked, worry in her voice. I felt a blow to the head, then, "Nothing."